I had been counting the days leading up to this moment like people count the nights before a big event, like a wedding, a move, or the birth of a child. But this time it was all about Christmas. My favorite holiday since I was a kid. Back when I used to wake up at 4 in the morning, trembling with excitement, wondering if Santa had really come. But this year it wasn't about me. It was about Liam. He had just turned 2.5, and for the first time he was old enough to actually understand what Christmas meant. Jason and I had been preparing since November. I bought Liam reindeer pajamas, put together an advent calendar with a surprise behind each little door, tiny toy trucks, chocolate, or a little note with a riddle. Even at his age, Liam had his own tastes. He was obsessed with ice cream trucks, corgi dogs, and anything that lit up. We left for my parents' place on December 22nd, a Friday. The roads were clear, the weather was dry, but there was that unmistakable tension in the air, that electric anticipation of the holidays. The GPS said 4 hours, and we left at 8 a.m. Liam fell asleep almost immediately in his car seat. Jason turned on some 80s playlist over Bluetooth, and I scrolled through old Christmas photos on my phone. Last year, Liam didn't really get what was going on. He was more fascinated by the wrapping paper than the gifts themselves. But this year, he kept asking every day if Santa was coming to Grandma's house. My parents live in an old 2-story house in Connecticut with a wood-burning fireplace, a porch swing, and a massive Christmas tree in the living room that my dad puts up every year, even when we're not visiting. This year, he said, I put it up for Liam. That hit me harder than I expected. We hadn't seen them since the summer, and even then, it was just for a weekend. When we finally pulled up the driveway, my mom was already on the porch, wearing her apron still dusted with flour. Dad came out from behind the house wearing his traditional dark green Christmas coat with sleigh-shaped buttons. He always loved the theatrics of the season. He thrived on Christmas pageantry. We're here, Jason called out, yanking our suitcases from the trunk. Little Santa has arrived, my mom shouted, rushing toward Liam, who had just climbed out of the car, looking dazed but curious. He ran straight for the garden, leaving little footprints in the snow like it was something completely new. Jason smiled at me, and I felt my chest loosen for the first time in weeks. Inside, everything smelled like cinnamon, apples, and freshly baked cookies. Dad had decorated the mantel with garlands of pine, and Mom had laid out her crystal serving dishes, the ones she only ever used for Easter and Christmas. That first evening was perfect. We ate an early dinner, then played Scrabble as a family, even though Liam mostly just stacked the tiles like blocks. We laughed, drank hot cocoa, and for a moment I thought, this might be the happiest night of my life. But then the weird stuff started happening. It began with Liam disappearing for a few minutes. I searched all over the house until I found him in the old nursery on the second floor, sitting on the carpet, staring into an empty corner of the room. What are you doing, sweetheart? There's a boy, he said, pointing into the shadows. What boy? He says he doesn't have a mommy. A chill ran through my spine. Jason had followed me upstairs and caught the look on my face. He's just pretending. Kids make up stuff. It's totally normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next morning, I noticed the attic door was ajar. We never opened it, and the key was always with my dad. When I asked him about it, he looked surprised and said he hadn't opened the attic in years. Maybe it was the wind, he suggested. But the latch was mechanical, not something a breeze could pop open. That evening, my parents invited over their old friends, Ted and Marla from next door. They came every Christmas Eve without fail. But Marla was different this time. Quiet. Skittish. She kept glancing over at the fireplace like something, or someone, was standing behind it. When I asked if she was okay, she whispered. Just remembering. There used to be another family in this house, 30 years ago. What do you mean? Jason asked. Marla looked uncomfortable. I thought you knew. There was an incident. A little boy died here. Right before Christmas. He was about Liam's age. My stomach dropped. How did he die? He fell from the attic. They searched for him for 3 days. Eventually found him, under the porch. Too late. My mom shot Marla a look that clearly meant, shut up, but it was already out there. The mood in the room dissolved. Liam quietly played with his fork in his high chair, unfazed. I couldn't sleep that night. Around 1 a.m., I went downstairs for water and saw Liam standing in the hallway, alone, barefoot, staring up the stairs. Liam. He didn't respond. I walked up to him and gently touched his shoulder. He whispered. He wants to show me his present. Who? The boy with no mommy. I picked him up, even though he squirmed a little, and carried him back to bed. His little hands were ice cold. The next morning, I told my mom I wanted to talk. She brushed me off, saying it was just old gossip and nothing to get worked up about. But I know my mother. She never gets rattled without a reason. And right now, she wouldn't meet my eyes. So I went to the attic. That was my first mistake. I woke up to the sound of clinking dishes and hushed voices coming from the kitchen. For a few seconds, I just lay in bed, thinking maybe I'd imagined the previous night, the attic door, Liam's whisper about the boy with no mommy, Marla's comment about the dead child. But the unease was still there, pressed behind my ribs like a held breath. Jason was still asleep, and Liam was curled up beside me, his little fists clenched around the edge of his blanket. It was just past 6:30. I got up quietly and went to the bathroom. As I opened the door, I caught the faint sound of a familiar voice, one that instantly made my stomach tighten. Rachel. My older sister. It was hard to explain Rachel unless you'd met her. She was the type of person who always looked like she was about to go on air for a live news broadcast. Perfect hair, perfect posture, tailored coat, shoes so clean it seemed she never actually walked in them. She was 34, single, a marketing executive in Boston, and she had never liked kids. Not even when we were kids. Rachel never played with me growing up. She talked to me like a substitute teacher who didn't want to be there. When I got pregnant with Liam, she congratulated me via text with a single word. Nice. We hadn't spoken more than a few sentences since then, unless it was in a family group chat. I stepped into the kitchen and there she was, standing with a glass of cucumber water like it was a summer retreat, wearing one of her fitted wool cardigans over a silky white blouse. Well, look who's up, she said without smiling. Morning, I replied. Didn't know you were coming this early. I got in last night. Around midnight. I didn't want to deal with traffic and screaming children on the highway. She didn't even try to mask the jab. Mom was by the stove, flipping French toast, clearly trying to act like everything was normal. But even she looked tense. Dad was already outside with the snowblower. He avoided Rachel when she was in one of her moods. I figured I'd help Mom get things in order, Rachel added. You know, before things get too chaotic. I didn't reply. I poured myself a cup of coffee and tried to ignore the tone in her voice, but it kept buzzing in my ears like a fly. Liam wandered into the kitchen a few minutes later, still in his dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up like a haystack. He was clutching a toy truck and dragging his blanket behind him. Morning, sweetie, I said, kneeling to kiss his cheek. Hi, Mama, he mumbled. He saw Rachel and smiled. Hi. Rachel just looked at him, blinked once, and turned back to her phone. He said hi, I said sharply. I heard him, she replied without looking up. I'm just not in the mood for a noise. That was just the beginning. Throughout the morning, she kept making comments. When Liam laughed too loudly, she sighed dramatically. When he accidentally knocked over a napkin holder on the table, she picked it up with 2 fingers like it was contaminated. At one point, he tried to hand her a cookie he'd helped decorate. She literally backed away. Thanks, but no, she said, disgusted. He already licked it. He's too, I snapped. He was trying to share. Rachel looked at me with that same smug, condescending stare she always gave when she wanted to pretend she was above it all. Exactly. He's too. Which means he has no business putting his fingers all over everything while the rest of us are trying to enjoy an adult holiday. Mom dropped a spoon in the sink a little too hard. Rachel, she said cautiously, it's Christmas. Maybe we can just relax a little. I would relax, Rachel said, folding her arms, if I didn't feel like I was on a field trip with a daycare. The room went dead silent. I felt heat rising in my face, and I looked to Jason, who had just walked in. He caught my expression and immediately raised his eyebrows, as if to say, what did I miss this time? I pulled Liam toward me and whispered, let's go play in the living room. He didn't understand the tension, but he definitely felt the cold. After lunch, things escalated. Rachel had taken over the entire dining room table with her laptop, papers, and a vision board of all things. She was planning a product launch for some skincare brand and insisted that everyone just stay out of that area because I need focus time. Liam wandered into the room holding a stuffed reindeer and tripped over one of her cords. A stack of printouts slid off the table onto the floor. It wasn't a big deal, just a minor accident, but Rachel reacted like he'd spilled acid on her passport. Are you kidding me? She yelled. Liam froze. His eyes welled up with tears. Rachel, stop, I said, scooping him up. He didn't do anything on purpose. He needs to be controlled, she snapped. He's a toddler, not a robot. I'm sorry, but this house used to be peaceful. Now it's just noise, mess, and sticky fingerprints. I didn't come here to babysit someone else's chaos. You're not babysitting anyone, I said, raising my voice. You're just being cruel. Rachel looked at me like she'd won. Like provoking me was the whole point. Mom tried to smooth it over later, saying, Rachel's just tired, sweetheart. You know how she gets around the holidays. Yeah, I said bitterly. She gets mean. But it wasn't just me who noticed. That evening, my cousin Julia and her husband Matt arrived with their 7-year-old twins. Julia was always close to me, more like a sister than Rachel ever was. As soon as they walked in, the kids ran around laughing, Liam squealing in joy at the sight of them. Rachel stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, face stiff as granite. Oh great, she muttered. More of them. I tried to pull Julia aside and warn her, but it was too late. Later that night, we all sat down for board games and hot cider. The kids were playing nearby, building a Lego city on the coffee table. Julia was in the middle of telling a story about a work party gone wrong when Rachel stood up abruptly. I can't do this. Do what? Julia asked, genuinely confused. This. Rachel snapped, waving her arm at the kids. The screaming, the chaos, the mess. Every 5 minutes someone's dropping something, crying, touching my things. Why should I have to tolerate this just to celebrate a holiday? Because it's Christmas, Rachel, I said. And this is a family holiday, not your personal spa retreat. She turned to Mom and Dad. I honestly don't know how you put up with this. I used to love coming home. Now it's like Chuck E. Cheese with Garland. Dad finally stepped in. Enough, Rachel. That's enough. But she wasn't finished. You all act like I'm the crazy one. Like I'm the problem because I don't want to pretend that your kids are cute when they're not. Liam screamed in the carport earlier for 5 straight minutes because he couldn't find his sock. That's not adorable, that's dysfunction. Jason got up then. He never got involved in family drama, but even he looked furious. You don't have to like kids, he said, calm but firm, but you do need to respect that this is our son and this is our time too. Rachel scoffed. Oh please. You think I'm jealous? That I'm bitter because I don't have one of my own? No, I said, staring her down. I think you're just miserable, and you want everyone else to be miserable with you. She stared at me. Cold. Unmoving. Then she turned and walked out. We all stood there stunned. Later, I found out she went to stay at a hotel in town. I wish I could say things calmed down after that, but her absence just left a weird vacuum, like we were all afraid she'd come storming back at any moment. Liam kept asking where the lady with the phone went, and I didn't know what to tell him. Mom tried to explain it away again. You know how Rachel is, but something in her voice cracked. Like even she was done defending her. We spent Christmas Eve without her. The house felt warmer, lighter. We baked cookies, decorated Liam's stocking, read bedtime stories. The tension had lifted, even if the bruise from her words remained. The next morning, Christmas Day, a single text arrived from her. Merry Christmas. I'll be back tomorrow to collect my things. No apology. No explanation. Just Rachel. Christmas morning started beautifully. Liam woke up giddy, running to the foot of the tree with this wide, toothy grin that practically lit the room. He squealed when he saw the bike, tiny red, with a black helmet and training wheels, that Jason and I stayed up until 2 in the morning assembling. He gasped when he saw the pile of wrapped boxes, as if he'd discovered treasure buried under evergreen branches. Santa came, he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. Jason recorded the whole thing on his phone while I sat on the couch, sipping my first cup of coffee, watching my son experience his first real Christmas miracle. Mom brought out a tray of cinnamon rolls, and even Dad looked less gruff than usual, sitting in his armchair wearing the same ridiculous elf hat he's worn every year since 2009. For about an hour, everything was perfect. And then Rachel returned. She walked in around 9:30 a.m., dressed head to toe in charcoal gray, like she was in mourning. Even her scarf was aggressively knotted, like she'd tied it in a fit of spite. She didn't say hello. She didn't look at Liam, who was halfway through unwrapping a talking fire truck. She didn't acknowledge the warmth in the room. She just walked in, dropped her leather overnight bag by the stairs, and said, "Is the chaos over, or are we still pretending shrieking equals joy?" Jason froze mid-recording. My mom glanced up from the dining table, her smile faltering. Liam held up his toy. Auntie Rachel. Look. It talks. Rachel actually took a step back. That's great, Liam, she said through gritted teeth, like it physically hurt her. Then she turned to my mom. So, are we doing brunch, or is that going to be derailed by another tantrum about toast crusts? I stared at her. What is wrong with you? She looked directly at me, raising her eyebrows with practiced calm. What's wrong with me? Emily, he's literally ruining Christmas. And that was it. That was the moment. The drop that finally overflowed the cup. I stood up slowly, my hands still warm from holding my coffee. My voice stayed even, but there was no softness in it. No, Rachel. You are ruining Christmas by acting like a child over a happy child. The room fell completely silent. Jason's hand stopped mid-scroll on his phone. My mom's mouth opened slightly, but she didn't say anything. Liam blinked, not understanding the words but definitely feeling the tension. He sat down on the floor, his fire truck resting in his lap. Rachel tilted her head, the corner of her mouth twitching. Excuse me. You heard me, I said. You've been complaining since the minute you walked into this house. You ignored your own nephew. You snapped at him. You made Mom uncomfortable in her own kitchen. You accused me of letting him ruin everything just because he's excited. You don't like kids, fine. But don't take your issues out on a 2-year-old. Dad cleared his throat and leaned forward in his chair. She's right, Rachel. Rachel turned sharply. What? I said. My dad repeated more firmly, Emily's right. You've crossed a line. Several times. I had never seen Rachel look shocked before. She usually maintained this calm indifference, like everything rolled off her. But right then her expression cracked. She looked genuinely stunned. Dad, you can't be serious. I am, he said, his voice low but clear. This is your family. This is your nephew. You don't have to like everything about how things are done, but you do have to stop making the rest of us miserable. Rachel looked around the room like she was waiting for someone to back her up. No one did. Even my mother, who had spent the last 2 days trying to patch things over, stood frozen near the kitchen doorway. I couldn't read her expression. Part guilt, part sadness. I see, Rachel said finally. So this is the part where you all gang up on me and make me out to be the villain because I don't melt at the sight of a toddler throwing glitter? No, Jason said, standing up beside me. This is the part where you realize you're not the only one here. And maybe Christmas isn't just about what makes you comfortable. Rachel's face flushed red. I knew I shouldn't have come. I knew it. Then why did you? I asked. Seriously. What were you expecting? A silent retreat? This is a family Christmas. That includes the noise. The toys. The mess. If you didn't want that, you could have stayed in Boston. Her jaw tightened. She looked over at Mom one last time. You're not going to say anything? My mom sighed. I love you, Rachel. But I'm tired. And I'm not going to defend behavior I don't agree with just to keep the peace. Rachel's eyes flicked back to me. Cold. Angry. But behind it, hurt. A sharp, almost childlike kind of hurt. I saw it, just for a second. before she grabbed her bag. "I'll call a car." No one stopped her. She walked out without saying goodbye. The front door clicked shut behind her. Liam looked up at me. "Auntie sad." I crouched down, kissed his cheek. "Maybe. But it's not your fault." He hugged me and whispered, "We still Christmas?" "Yes, baby," I said, holding him close. "We still Christmas." The rest of the day felt strange. Quieter. There was this tension in the walls, like we were all waiting for Rachel to come storming back through the front door with another icy comment. But she didn't. Julia and Matt stayed the whole afternoon, helping clean up wrapping paper, playing board games, distracting Liam when he got fussy. Mom busied herself in the kitchen, cooking more than she needed to. At one point, she made an extra batch of mashed potatoes and then paused mid-stir, realizing Rachel wasn't there to complain about the texture. "I don't know what happened to her," Mom said softly, mostly to herself. "She used to love Christmas." I didn't respond. That night, once Liam was finally asleep, I went outside with Jason to take a breath. The air was cold and clean. Snowflakes were starting to fall, gentle and silent. "She's not coming back," I said. "No," Jason said. "She's not." I was surprised by how sad that made me feel, but not surprised enough to want her back. The idea came to me that same night. I couldn't sleep. Not because I was upset, on the contrary, I felt vindicated, but because I couldn't stop thinking about the way Rachel had stolen the joy from every room she entered. 4 years. Not just this Christmas. Her disdain, her passive-aggressive comments, her superiority complex. Always making people feel like they were beneath her. And this time she crossed the line. She humiliated my son. Publicly. And she did it with a smile. Jason was out cold next to me, and Liam was breathing softly in the baby monitor. Downstairs, the house had finally settled into silence. And then it hit me. A little twisted. A little theatrical. But after the way she acted, deserved. The next morning, while Jason took Liam out to play in the snow with Matt and the twins, I snuck into Dad's office and made a few quick calls. I had a friend in Stamford who worked in local theater. He knew a guy, a semi-retired stage actor named Brian, who played Santa Claus every December for malls, schools, and corporate parties. Full costume, real beard, booming voice, the works. I explained what I wanted. I offered double his normal rate and a gas card. "I want him to read a naughty list," I said. "A special edition. 5 things. Specific. Personal. You'll have a script." Brian didn't even hesitate. "I love petty," he said. "Send me the bullet points." I wrote them carefully, choosing each word with surgical precision. 5 moments. 5 Christmases where Rachel had been her absolute worst. Her 5 greatest hits. I even titled it, Rachel's 5 Biggest Christmas Failures. And I made sure they were impossible to argue with. The year she told Grandma Irene her cooking was bland and redundant. That was Christmas 2014. Rachel tasted the roast and immediately said, "Well, at least it's not undercooked this time." Grandma cried in the pantry for 20 minutes. The year she threw away the gingerbread house Liam tried to build. Just last year. She said it was unsanitary because he licked the icing off a plastic spoon. The year she said Christmas trees were for people who like clutter. That same year, she refused to help decorate, called the ornaments tacky, and left to get sushi alone. The year she regifted Mom's scarf to her assistant and got caught. Classic. 2019, Mom saw it on Instagram 2 weeks later. Same box. Same tag. The year she skipped Christmas to go to Dubai with her boss's family. 2021. She didn't tell anyone until the morning of December 24th. She texted, "Not feeling family this year." Brian was thrilled. "You want it jolly or savage?" he asked. "Jolly savage," I said. Like if Santa worked in HR and had no filter. We agreed he'd show up the next day, the 26th, during the late morning second brunch that Mom always hosted for the remaining relatives before they headed home. Perfect. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Jason. I wanted the full, unfiltered reactions. By 10:45 a.m., the living room was full again. Julia and Matt were there, laughing about the snowball fight earlier. Dad had turned on his classic vinyl Christmas records. Mom had just brought out a tray of eggnog and cranberry muffins. Even Liam was in a good mood, sitting in a beanbag chair, still holding his toy fire truck like it was the crown jewel of his kingdom. And Rachel? She had come back down from her room sometime around 9 o'clock. Didn't say a word to me. She was wearing designer loungewear, cashmere joggers, of course, and sipping coffee like she was being forced to attend a work function. Her mood was barely tolerable. Still cold. Still prickly. At exactly 11 a.m., the doorbell rang. "I got it," I said quickly, trying to keep my grin hidden. And there he was. Brian was incredible. 6'2". Velvet red suit with gold trim. Real leather boots. A belly he probably had naturally, but used to his advantage. And the voice, my God, the voice. Like thunder on a snowy rooftop. Ho ho ho. Merry Christmas. 2 days in a row. Everyone clapped. Mom actually gasped. Liam sprinted to the door in awe, shouting, "Santa." He came back. Rachel froze. Brian stepped inside, waving like a celebrity at a film premiere. "Santa heard that this house was full of cheer, and I just had to return with a special message," he boomed. A reading from the North Pole's most exclusive document. The naughty list. Everyone laughed. Even Dad. I saw Rachel's smile twitch slightly. Uncomfortable. She had no idea what was coming. Brian opened a scroll with a dramatic flourish. Now, this isn't just any naughty list. This is a refined compilation, handcrafted by the elves, listing the most memorable Christmas crimes committed by one very special adult. Her name begins with an R and ends in ACHEL. Gasps. Laughter. Matt nearly choked on his cider. Rachel went pale. Santa, you wouldn't, she said, trying to laugh. But it came out brittle. Oh, but I must. The children deserve justice, Brian declared. He cleared his throat and began. 1. The year you told sweet Grandma Irene her roast was bland and redundant. The North Pole received reports of tears. So many tears. Laughter. Rachel blinked slowly. 2. The year you threw away your little nephew's first gingerbread house because of a health hazard. You know who doesn't care about icing hygiene? Children, Rachel. Julia snorted. Liam giggled, not really knowing what was going on but loving the performance. 3. The time you said, and I quote, Christmas trees are for people who like clutter. That hurt, Rachel. That hurt the elves. Okay, this is getting ridiculous, Rachel muttered, standing up. 4. The regifted scarf. Santa saw the Instagram post. So did your mother. The room exploded with laughter. Jason looked at me stunned. Did you? I said, grinning. And finally, Brian bellowed. 5. The year you skipped Christmas to go to Dubai and texted your family on Christmas Eve. Not feeling family this year. Rachel's mouth dropped open. I had a work trip. Santa doesn't believe in work trips on Christmas, Brian declared. You are officially banned from reindeer rides until further notice. The entire room was crying with laughter. Rachel stood there frozen. Then her face flushed deep red. You think this is funny, she said. You all think humiliating me is a joke? No one answered. I could barely breathe from laughing. Rachel turned sharply toward me. This was you, wasn't it? I didn't lie. Yes, it was. And it was long overdue. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You're so petty, she said, voice shaking. You're disgusting. I crossed my arms. I call it balance. Rachel spun on her heel and stormed up the stairs. We heard her bedroom door slam so hard the walls shuddered. Brian leaned toward me and whispered, Too far? Absolutely not, I said. 10 out of 10. He bowed and headed out. Liam called after him, By Santa. I be good next year. Brian winked. You already are, kid. We spent the rest of the brunch in hysterics. Mom was beside herself. Dad said it was the most honest thing that had ever happened at a holiday gathering. Julia said it was the best thing she'd seen since high school theater club, roasted Principal Darren for canceling prom. Rachel never came back down. I tried once around sunset. I knocked gently. Rachel. Silence. Are you okay? Still nothing. I left some food in the fridge if you want it. Not even footsteps. Just a still, heavy silence on the other side of the door. I returned to the living room. Jason gave me a look. You think she's actually not talking to us again? Good, I said, flopping onto the couch. Let her enjoy the silence she loves so much. And for the first time in years, we laughed without flinching. It didn't take long for Rachel to retaliate. The morning after Santa's naughty list performance, I woke up to a string of texts, dozens, sent between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., all from her. Each message got increasingly hostile, the punctuation more frantic, the wording more venomous. She didn't just accuse me of humiliating her in front of the family. She called me a bitter, insecure, manipulative who uses her kid as a social weapon. I read every word in silence. Jason leaning over my shoulder, jaw clenched. Liam was still asleep in the next room. The longer I scrolled, the worse it got. You've always been jealous. Of my life, my job, my freedom. You're not a mom, Emily. You're a parasite hiding behind motherhood. You think everyone loves you, but they just tolerate you out of pity. No punctuation in some. Too much in others. It was like watching someone unravel in real time. Then came the screenshots. She had posted vague, wounded paragraphs on Facebook, full of pity and half-truths. When your own sister turns your family into a laughingstock just to get a moment of applause, it really makes you wonder why people have children at all. I came home for connection. I left with trauma. I guess some people just need a scapegoat to feel better about their choices. Family is supposed to be unconditional. Instead, I got mocked, targeted, and betrayed by blood. Within hours, the comments started pouring in. Cousin Victoria, who moved to California and only ever shows up to weddings, wrote, This is heartbreaking. You don't deserve that, Rachel. Some people are just cruel. Aunt Helen, who's always been obsessed with appearances, commented, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. You've always been the strong one. Don't let their insecurity affect your shine. And then, some of us know the truth. You're not the problem. They are. I won't lie, it got under my skin. But what surprised me was how many people didn't take her side. Quietly, in DMs, texts, even a few phone calls, other relatives started checking in with me. My cousin Sam wrote, Ignore her. That post was unhinged. We were there. She acted like a complete psycho. Julia sent me a voice note. She's acting like she got publicly flogged. It was a damn joke. And deserved. Even my dad, who never meddled in online drama, texted me privately. If I had known it would hit a nerve like this, I'd have printed Santa a second scroll. Still, the pressure kept building. On December 29th, Rachel announced a last-minute apology dinner at her condo in Boston. She sent out an overly formal group text inviting me, Jason, my parents, and a few cousins. The message read like something between a ceasefire negotiation and a press release. To clear the air and move forward with healing, I'm hosting a small dinner at my place. I hope we can reconnect like adults. I stared at my phone. Should we even go? I asked Jason. He was quiet for a long time before answering. It's bait. But if we don't show, she'll milk it for another week online. So we agreed. One night. One dinner. Just to show we weren't hiding. We drove to Boston on New Year's Eve. Her condo was in Back Bay, high ceilings, all white and chrome, no trace of personality. Rachel greeted us at the door with a rehearsed smile and a glass of champagne already in her hand. Thanks for coming, she said flatly. Inside, Aunt Helen was already seated on the sectional, cross-legged like a plastic mannequin. Cousin Victoria was taking selfies in front of the window. Julia and Matt arrived just after us, looking like they regretted it the moment they walked in. The dining table was set for 8. Crystal chargers. Black napkins. Place cards. Jason looked at me and muttered, "Is this dinner or a TED Talk?" There was no sign of Liam's name at the table. "I didn't prepare a kid's menu," Rachel said quickly, noticing Jason's glance. "Children are unpredictable, and this evening is meant to be structured." "He's too," I said. "He just eats food." She shrugged and walked off. We made Liam a plate anyway, and let him sit on a cushion beside our chairs. Dinner was plated by a caterer. Yes, a caterer. Not a homemade dish in sight. Seared duck breast with pomegranate glaze, truffle risotto, and some deconstructed winter salad that looked like it had already been picked apart by crows. Rachel raised her glass. To new beginnings. And mature conversations. I should have known then. The first half hour went relatively smooth, if awkward. Small talk. Polite smiles. Then Rachel started weaving her comments in, quietly at first, buried under the usual dinner chatter. When I mentioned how Liam had started singing nursery rhymes, Rachel sipped her wine and said, "I guess that's impressive when your biggest milestone is stringing 3 words together." When Jason asked where she got her table centerpiece, she replied, "Wouldn't expect you to notice the aesthetic, but thanks." By the time dessert came out, something pretentious involving fig foam and burnt honey, I was gripping my fork like a weapon. And then came the moment. Jason asked how her work trip to London had gone. A harmless question. Rachel leaned back in her chair, smiling sweetly. "Oh, it was great. Peaceful. Adult. No sticky hands. No juice box explosions. No toddler screaming because their toy truck looked at them funny." The table froze. Jason looked stunned. Julia put down her wine. My mom shifted in her chair. Rachel laughed lightly. "Oh, come on. I'm joking. Can't anyone here take a joke?" I stood up. "You want jokes, Rachel?" I said, my voice steady. "Hire another Santa. You're great at scheduling those." She dropped her smile. "Oh, we're doing this again," she said sharply. "Still clinging to your little win? You humiliated me in front of the family like it was stand-up night at the trauma cafe." "You wrote the material, Rachel," I said. "You just didn't like the delivery." She stood up, matching my height. "You're obsessed with painting me as the villain so people forget how deeply average you are." Jason stood, hand on my back. "We're done here." Rachel's voice cracked. "Run away again. That's what you do. Ruin something and flee." I stared at her for a full second. "No, Rachel. This time, we're leaving so you can have the room you always think you deserve." We gathered our things. Julia and Matt stood too. Without a word. Rachel didn't follow. She didn't need to. That night, the Facebook posts began again. You try to make peace, and they twist it into a scene. Some people hate seeing you grow. They'll label healing as manipulation. Don't let it break you. Tonight I learned that grace is wasted on the graceless. Aunt Helen commented. They don't deserve your energy. Victoria added. You're a warrior. Don't let small minds dim your light. But this time, almost no one else reacted. Most of the family had seen the full picture by now. They were done playing audience to her breakdowns. I turned off my phone and went to sleep with Jason beside me, and Liam snuggled between us, blissfully unaware of how ugly grown-ups could be when pride outweighed love. And for once, I felt no guilt walking away. It had been a week of silence. No more texts. No more Facebook rants. No calls from Rachel. No backhanded comments online. Jason and I had almost started to believe that it was over, that Rachel had finally burned every last bridge and moved on to sulk alone in her curated, sterile condo, surrounded by decorative vases and unread coffee table books. But then Mom called. It was the tone of her voice that tipped me off. Polite, pleasant, but too careful, like she was walking across a frozen lake and didn't trust the ice beneath her own feet. Emily, she said, I'm putting together a little gathering. I didn't say anything. A family discussion. A reconciliation. I think we need it. There was a pause. She asked for this? I asked, already dreading the answer. Well, no. I did. But she agreed to come. Is it just us? I asked. Or are you inviting everyone? There was another pause, slightly longer. I think it's important everyone has a chance to speak, she said. I invited Julia and Matt. Sam. Aunt Claire. Even Uncle Steve and Denise. Uncle Steve. I raised an eyebrow. The man who got blackout drunk at your 60th birthday and told the caterer to keep the shrimp coming until he said stop? He's still family. Of course he was. Mom wanted to host the meeting at the house, the same living room where Rachel had refused to help decorate the tree, where she'd said Liam's joy was chaotic, where she'd turned holiday warmth into cold stares and judgment. She even said she'd make lemon bars. Jason just looked at me when I told him. She's still trying, he said softly. Even after everything. I knew what he meant. This wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It was about Mom needing to believe that we weren't all slowly unraveling. So I said yes. We showed up that Sunday around 4 o'clock. Julia and Matt were already there, sitting on the edge of the couch like they were in a waiting room before a medical procedure. Sam leaned against the fireplace, arms crossed, sipping from a thermos I was 99% sure wasn't filled with tea. Aunt Claire looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, scrolling her phone in the corner. And Uncle Steve was in his classic indoor sunglasses look, even though it was overcast and we were not, in fact, on a yacht. Mom came out of the kitchen with a tray of lemon bars and her best porcelain cups. She had lit a cinnamon candle. The fireplace was glowing. She even had some quiet instrumental Christmas music playing in the background, like we were about to have a book club, not a psychological detonation. Then the front door opened. Rachel walked in like she was being led to an award stage. Hair done. Full makeup. Soft beige coat over a designer dress that didn't quite say humility. Her expression was neutral, almost bored, but I could see the tension in her jaw. Thanks for coming, Mom said gently. Rachel nodded, didn't say a word to me or Jason, and sat on the single armchair like it was a throne. Well, Mom began, clasping her hands together. We all know the past few weeks have been difficult. Emotional. But this family is important. And if we can't talk openly with each other, then what do we have? Nobody said anything. Rachel, she continued. I think you wanted to share first? Rachel took a breath and then let her voice drop into this perfect imitation of vulnerability, something she'd mastered over the years. I just feel like I've been misrepresented. Villainized. Like no matter what I say or do, it gets twisted. I felt my eye twitch. People think I hate kids, I don't. I just struggle with chaos. With noise. It's not that I don't love my nephew. It's just hard to connect when I'm constantly being pushed out of the circle. Jason leaned forward. You pushed yourself out, Rachel. No one excluded you. Rachel turned toward him, blinking slowly. I didn't come here to be attacked. You came here to be honest, I said. So be honest. She looked directly at me then. You humiliated me, Emily. You embarrassed yourself, I shot back. I didn't invent anything. Every single thing Santa said actually happened. And you know it. You turned the family against me. Sam snorted. Nah. You handled that part on your own. Rachel's face hardened. Oh, I forgot, Sam's the voice of reason now. I wasn't going to say anything, Sam replied. But since we're being honest, your Facebook posts? Pathetic. No names, but we all know who they were about. Uncle Steve cleared his throat. I saw one that said, some people weaponize children to make themselves feel superior. He sipped from his thermos. That one kind of made me spit my drink. Mostly because, wow. Projection. Steve, Mom warned. No, Susan, he said. We're doing this, right? This is the reconciliation? Then let's reconcile. Rachel's been making snide remarks at every family gathering for the past 5 years. She rolls her eyes at everything, refuses to help with anything, and acts like she's been burdened just by showing up. Claire finally looked up from her phone. I once offered her a seat at Thanksgiving and she said, I'd rather stand than smell that casserole. I've never forgotten that. Matt quietly added, we didn't want to say anything. But last Christmas, she told our daughter her handmade ornament looked like a glitter bomb exploded on a popsicle stick. She was 6. Rachel sat back, eyes wide. I didn't mean that literally. She cried in the car the entire way home, Julia said. So don't tell me you were misrepresented. We all saw it. Mom stepped in, trying to restore order. Let's not pile on. She needs to be piled on, Sam said. Or she's going to keep doing this until she's celebrating Christmas alone in a mirror. Rachel stood up. Okay, she said, voice shaky. This was obviously a mistake. No, I said. It's exactly what needed to happen. We've all been tiptoeing around your mood swings and superiority for years. And you know what? I'm done. Me too, Jason added. We came because we thought maybe, just maybe, you'd come down to Earth for once. Turns out you're still orbiting your own planet. Rachel looked to Mom for rescue. But even she was quiet. You all think this is my fault, she said, her voice breaking now. Everyone stayed silent. I tried, she whispered. I really tried to come back. You didn't try, I said. You staged a dinner party with crystal name cards and then insulted our kid in front of everyone. Again. Rachel looked at the floor. For once, she didn't have a response. She walked out without another word. This time she didn't slam the door. Later that night, after we got home, the Facebook posts resumed. You show up. You speak your truth. And you get stomped on by the very people you wanted to reconnect with. Note to self, family doesn't mean safe. Next year, I'll be spending Christmas with people who value peace. The comments trickled in. Fewer this time. A couple of distant acquaintances chimed in, offering vague sympathy. But most of the family had seen through it now. They weren't playing her game anymore. I didn't reply. Neither did Jason. And for the first time in years, I felt like Rachel's grip on this family, the manipulation, the martyrdom, the drama, was finally slipping. At first, I didn't realize she was messaging them one by one. It started subtly. A call from Aunt Claire. Then a vague text from my cousin Ellie. Then my dad mentioned, almost offhandedly, that Rachel had reached out to check on him. Each time the tone was the same, hesitant, like they didn't quite know what to say to me anymore. It wasn't until Julia called me in a fury that I realized how deep Rachel's campaign had gone. She told Denise that you made up stories about her being abusive to Liam, Julia said, not even bothering to say hello first. That you started this whole Santa stunt as revenge for something that never even happened. I had to sit down. She said what? She's been calling everyone, Julia continued. Individually. Playing victim. Saying she's being cut off for no reason, and that you've turned the whole family against her with fake trauma. Denise called me crying because she thought she'd missed something and didn't want to take sides. I felt like my skull was vibrating. Jason was in the kitchen, and I waved him over. It's Rachel, I mouthed. He immediately sat down, expression darkening. Julia didn't stop. That's not even the worst part. She texted Sam's wife and said Liam might need psychological help because you're raising him in a toxic emotional echo chamber. I could barely breathe. That's enough, I said, standing up. This is actual slander. She's unraveling, Julia said. And she wants to take everyone down with her. By the time I hung up, I had 6 missed texts. 3 from relatives. 2 from friends. 1 from my former coworker, Bree. Hey, weird question, but did you really scream at your sister in front of her coworkers during a dinner party? Someone's been saying things. Bree was the nicest person I knew. Calm. Rational. If she was reaching out, something was really off. I replied, no. I've never even met her coworkers. Then I got a DM from Heather, a friend from college I hadn't spoken to in months. Why is your sister telling people you called her infertile during an argument? Is this real? That one actually made me sick to my stomach. Not only had I never said such a thing, I had gone out of my way never to bring up Rachel's life choices or lack of children. It was something I respected, even when she made snide remarks about my own family. Now she was inventing quotes and planting them in people's inboxes like landmines. Jason saw the look on my face and pulled the phone out of my hand. We're done, he said. No, I replied. Not until I know how far this has gone. What followed was a week of damage control. I called friends I hadn't seen in months. I messaged extended relatives. I answered awkward questions and undid rumors like knots in wet rope. Each time I got ahead of one lie, another surfaced. Rachel had been playing this long game for weeks, maybe months, and now it was peaking. She'd contacted Stacy, a mom in my neighborhood who I barely knew, and told her I had a breakdown in front of Liam at a holiday party and had to be sedated. Stacy, the woman who walks her Pomeranian in a baby stroller and thinks oat milk is an emotional support product. And yet, even she texted me. So sorry to hear what you're going through. I didn't realize your sister was going to such lengths. Apparently, Rachel had also created a second Instagram account. One of those anonymous, aesthetically filtered accounts filled with vague quotes about surviving emotional cruelty and rebuilding from sabotage. She didn't use her name, but the bio read, recovering from family-induced trauma. Do better for yourself. Speak your truth. Every third post was a low-key reference to me. One read, being a mother doesn't automatically make you a good person. Some people just hide behind diapers and sympathy. Another, people love playing kind victim while turning everyone around them against you with lies. Watch for the silent assassins. I recognized the language. Rachel always thought she was clever with words, but she was never as subtle as she believed. The final straw came the following weekend. Jason and I had invited over some close friends, Lana and Greg, people we'd known since before Liam was born. Safe people. Real friends. We cooked dinner, poured wine, put Liam down early, and tried to feel normal for one night. But then Lana took me aside in the hallway while Jason poured drinks. She emailed me, she said quietly. I blinked. Who? Rachel. She sent me an actual email. She said she was concerned about you. That you've become unstable since having Liam. That you're lashing out at people and smearing her reputation to cover your own breakdown. I leaned back against the wall. She even included screenshots of your Facebook from last year, like she was building a case, Lana said. It was honestly creepy. I didn't cry. I didn't even scream. I laughed. Because I realized, finally, what this was. It wasn't sibling rivalry. It was warfare. And I didn't have the energy anymore. The next morning, I sat down with my phone and pulled up Rachel's number. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I opened the message thread and typed out the last words I would ever say to her. I'm done, Rachel. I don't have the energy for this anymore. I've spent weeks undoing your lies, fixing what you tried to destroy, and trying to stay calm while you chip away at every good thing in my life. You've crossed so many lines I've lost count. I don't know who you think you're fighting, but it's not me anymore. I'm walking away. For good. I didn't wait for a response. I blocked her number. Then I blocked her backup number. Then her email. Her fake Instagram. Her Facebook. All of it. I didn't say anything publicly. I didn't need to. Because the people who mattered already knew the truth. A few weeks passed. After I blocked Rachel on every platform imaginable, the storm quieted. For a while, I kept waiting for the next wave, another anonymous post, another sideways message delivered through a distant relative. But it didn't come. Instead, Rachel vanished. Not just from my life, she started pulling away from the entire family. Julia was the first to notice. She texted me a screenshot of Rachel's now private Instagram bio. Offline for healing. Rebuilding alone. Not open for discussion. Sam told me she left the family group chat entirely. One day she was reacting with hearts and emojis to Aunt Denise's banana bread pictures, and the next, gone. No message. Just silence. She deleted me too, Matt said. Blocked me after I tagged her in a throwback photo from your wedding. She said it was part of the problem. Still no idea what that means. Then Mom called. It was late. Liam had just gone to sleep, and I was sitting in the hallway folding his pajamas while Jason tackled a pile of dishes. I answered on the third ring. Hi, I said cautiously. I know you don't want to talk about her, Mom began, but I need to say something. I waited. I went to see her. I froze. You went. She didn't let me in, she said softly. She stood in the hallway. Wouldn't hug me. Told me I was complicit in all of this and that I'd let the wolves eat her alive. Then she shut the door. I pressed the phone harder to my ear. She's not doing well, Emily, Mom said. She's isolated. Angry. But under all that, I think she's scared. I closed my eyes. She won't talk to anyone, Mom continued. Even Helen stopped defending her. And Denise, well, you know Denise. She's Switzerland. But even she said Rachel's spiraling. I said nothing. Mom exhaled. It was the kind of breath that sounded like it took years to push out. You know, I keep thinking maybe I spoiled her too much. I thought I was giving her confidence. But maybe what I gave her was entitlement. I didn't expect that. Not from Mom. Not ever. She always needed more, Mom said. More praise. More reassurance. More space. And I gave it to her. I thought that was love. But maybe. I taught her the world would bend for her. That we all would. The line went quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I just wanted my girls to love each other. I felt a tightness in my throat. I know, I said. But that's not something you can force. No, she whispered. It's not. We didn't talk about Rachel again after that. Instead, we talked about Liam. It was a week into January, and Liam still talked about Santa like he might walk back through the front door at any moment. He told anyone who would listen that Santa had read Auntie Rachel's name off the naughty paper and that next year, he was going to bake cookies with extra sparkles, so Santa would come back again. Jason joked that we'd started a new holiday tradition, revenge theater, but festive. But to Liam, it wasn't about revenge. To him, it was magic. One day, I was sorting through the Christmas decorations when he walked into the room dragging a red scarf he'd found in the closet. Santa wear this? He asked. I laughed. Maybe. Why? Can I wear it now? He asked. I be Santa for Daddy? I helped him loop it around his neck and he ran into the kitchen yelling, ho ho ho, with pure joy on his face. That's when I realized. He remembered the joy. The laughter. The magic. Not the drama. Not the fights. And that meant we'd done something right. The following weekend, Jason and I invited a few friends over for a casual dinner. Julia, Matt, Sam, and his wife Kendra. It felt like reclaiming space. We had wine, made homemade pizza, and set up a movie for Liam in the next room. Midway through dinner, Julia raised her glass. To next Christmas, she said. With fewer fireworks. We laughed. No promises, Jason said. I smiled. Santa's definitely coming back, I said. It's tradition now. Sam raised his brow. Think we could get him to read the rest of the family's sins next time? Starting with Uncle Steve's gambling addiction, Matt added. And Aunt Helen's Botox lies, said Julia. We were all laughing, but under it, I felt something warm settle inside me. This wasn't about Rachel anymore. It was about Liam. About choosing joy over bitterness. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood in the living room alone. The tree had been taken down, the lights packed away, the scent of pine and cinnamon slowly fading from the walls. But the memory lingered. Liam's laughter. Jason's quiet steadiness. The moment Rachel stormed off, yes, but also the moment we didn't chase after her. Because we didn't have to. We were building something here. Something solid. And no amount of passive-aggressive sabotage or emotional manipulation could take that away. Next year, we'd do it all again. The fire truck under the tree. The cinnamon rolls. The actor in the Santa suit reading just enough truth to make us laugh and flinch at the same time. And maybe if we were lucky, Rachel would stay gone.